Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the battleship Defiance and watched the space around Earth fill with enemy ships. The massive alien vessels appeared from nowhere like dark shadows against the stars. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humanity had ever built. Their black hulls gleamed with strange symbols that hurt to look at directly. Jake had been a military man for 30 years, but he had never seen anything like this. The alien fleet stretched across the void in perfect formation. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. He tried to count but gave up when the numbers reached into the hundreds. His hands shook as he gripped the command rail. Communications Officer Sarah Williams turned to face him with fear in her eyes. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's coming from the largest ship." Jake nodded slowly. He knew this moment would change everything for humanity. "Put it on the main screen." The view screen flickered to life and showed a creature that made Jake's blood run cold. The alien stood 9 feet tall with scales that shifted from green to black in the light. Its eyes were yellow with vertical pupils like a snake. Rows of sharp teeth filled its mouth when it spoke. The creature wore armor covered in spikes and carried weapons Jake couldn't identify. "I am War Leader Zexthor of the Vorthak Hegemony," the alien said in perfect English. Its voice sounded like grinding stone. "Your species will surrender immediately or face complete destruction. You have 72 hours to consider our generous offer." Jake stepped forward. His uniform felt heavy on his shoulders. "This is Admiral Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. What do you want from us?" Zexthor's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. We want nothing from you. We take what we require. Your species will serve the hegemony as workers. Your planets will provide resources. Your technology will be absorbed into our empire. This is how it has always been. And if we refuse? Refusal is not possible. We have conquered 43 civilizations across this galaxy. None have resisted successfully. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your defenses cannot stop our advance. Submit now and some of your kind may survive to serve. The transmission cut off. Jake stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew waited for orders. Everyone knew they faced an impossible situation. The human fleet had maybe 200 ships scattered across 17 star systems. The aliens had brought thousands to Earth alone. Dr. Lisa Campbell worked frantically in her laboratory on Luna Station. She had been studying the alien transmissions since they first appeared. The patterns in their language told a disturbing story. These creatures saw other species as nothing more than tools to be used up and thrown away. Lisa pulled up recordings of previous alien conquests that the Vorthak had broadcast as warnings. The images made her sick. Entire worlds burned, cities reduced to ash, millions of beings forced into slavery or simply killed for sport. The Vorthak treated intelligent life like humans treated insects. She called up her research partner Katie Brooks on the communication system. Katie's face appeared on the screen looking exhausted. They had been working for 18 hours straight trying to find some weakness in the alien technology. "Any progress with the energy signatures?" Lisa asked. Katie shook her head. "Their shields operate on frequencies we've never seen before. Our best weapons won't even scratch them. It's like they're using physics we haven't discovered yet. Keep looking. There has to be something. No technology is perfect. Lisa, maybe we should consider their offer. If we surrender, at least some humans might survive." Lisa's jaw tightened. "You've seen what they do to conquered species. They work them to death in their mines and factories. The lucky ones die quickly. The unlucky ones live as slaves for generations before their species goes extinct." Out in the asteroid belt, Captain Ben Rodriguez led a desperate evacuation of the mining colonies. His ship, the Courage, was packed beyond capacity with refugees. Children cried in the hallways. Families huddled together in cargo bays. Everyone knew they were running from something they couldn't fight. Ben's communications officer reported more bad news every hour. "Captain, we've lost contact with the colonies at Vesta and Ceres. Long-range sensors show Vorthak ships in those areas. How long until we reach the rendezvous point?" 6 hours at current speed. "But sir, the refugee ships are having trouble keeping up. Their engines weren't designed for this kind of extended flight." Ben made a hard decision. "Signal the fleet. We maintain current speed. Anyone who falls behind will have to catch up later. We can't risk the entire convoy for a few ships." He hated himself for saying it. Ben knew that the ships they left behind would likely be destroyed or captured. But saving some people was better than losing everyone. The Vorthak showed no mercy to civilians. President Amanda Hayes sat in the emergency bunker beneath Washington and listened to reports from around the globe. Every military commander told her the same thing. Humanity couldn't win this fight. Their technology was centuries ahead of anything Earth possessed. Defense Secretary Robert Kim laid out their options. Madam President, we can attempt a fighting retreat to buy time for evacuations. Or we can negotiate terms of surrender that might save some population centers. Amanda looked around the room at her advisors. These were good people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. Now they were asking her to surrender their entire species to alien masters. What about our colonies? Can we evacuate everyone to systems outside Vorthak control? There isn't enough time or transportation. We might save maybe 10% of our total population if we start immediate evacuations and abandon Earth entirely. Amanda stood up slowly. She thought about her children and grandchildren. She thought about the billions of people counting on her to make the right choice. The easy choice would be surrender, accept alien rule and hope for mercy. But she had read the same reports as everyone else. The Vorthak didn't understand mercy. They understood only strength and submission. If humanity bowed down now, they would never stand up again. We fight, she said quietly. Madam President, our military advisors believe resistance is impossible. We'll be condemning billions to death. If we surrender, we're condemning billions to slavery. At least if we fight, we die as free beings. Send a message to all our colonies and military units. Humanity does not kneel to anyone. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Morrison received the President's orders. He looked out at the alien fleet surrounding Earth and felt a cold determination settle into his bones. The smart play was surrender. The right play was resistance. He turned to his crew. These men and women had served with him for years. They trusted his judgment even when that judgment might get them all killed. All ships, this is Admiral Morrison. We have our orders from Earth. Humanity will not surrender. All vessels prepare for combat operations. We're going to show these aliens what humans do when someone tries to make us kneel. The countdown began. 72 hours until humanity's answer would be written in fire and blood across the void. The 72 hours passed like a nightmare that wouldn't end. When the deadline arrived, war leader Zexthor kept his promise. The Vorthak attack began at exactly noon Earth, time with a barrage of plasma fire that lit up the solar system like a second sun. Captain Steve Turner watched his squadron of 20 fighter ships launch from the carrier Independence. He had flown combat missions before, but never against an enemy this powerful. His hands were steady on the controls despite the fear eating at his stomach. Behind him, 19 other pilots followed his lead toward certain death. Red Squadron, this is Red Leader. Steve spoke into his helmet microphone. Remember the plan. Hit the destroyer's weapon arrays and get out fast. Don't try to be heroes. We're here to gather intelligence, not win the war. The Vorthak destroyer hung in space like a metal mountain. Its surface bristled with weapons that could destroy planets. Steve's fighter was smaller than one of the alien ship's gun turrets. The size difference made him feel like an ant attacking a lion. Missiles away, called out Lieutenant Danny Shaw from Red 3. 20 plasma missiles streaked toward the enemy ship, trailing fire. Steve held his breath and waited for the impact that would tell them if human weapons could hurt the aliens. The missiles struck the Vorthak shields and disappeared like raindrops hitting hot metal. Not even a flicker showed on the alien barrier. Steve's heart sank as he realized their best weapons were completely useless. All fighters abort mission, he ordered. Return to base immediately, but it was too late. The destroyer's point defense systems came online and filled space with deadly energy beams. Red 7 exploded in a ball of fire. Red 12 spun out of control with its pilot screaming over the radio. Red 15 simply vanished in a flash of light. Steve pushed his fighter's engines to maximum power and fled toward the human fleet. Behind him, 12 more pilots died in seconds. Only 6 fighters made it back to the Independence. The rest were scattered atoms floating in the void. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance and watched his fleet die piece by piece. The human ships fought bravely, but their weapons couldn't penetrate enemy shields. Vorthak plasma cannons cut through human armor like paper. In 30 minutes, he lost 2/3 of his entire force. Admiral, we have to retreat, urged Captain Williams. If we stay here, they'll destroy us all. Morrison's jaw clenched as he watched the battleship Courage explode under alien fire. 3,000 good people died in that flash of light. He wanted to stay and fight until the end, but his duty was to preserve what remained of humanity's military strength. All ships, Fall back to the asteroid belt, he ordered with a heavy heart. We'll regroup at Station Alpha and plan our next move. The surviving human ships limped away from Earth with the Vorthak fleet pursuing them slowly. The aliens weren't in any hurry. They knew the humans had nowhere to run. Dr. Lisa Campbell worked frantically in her laboratory as Luna Station shook under bombardment. Emergency lights flickered red as Vorthak fighters strafed the moon's surface. She ignored the explosions and focused on the data streaming across her computer screens. The battle had given her something valuable. Sensor readings from the destroyed human ships showed exactly how Vorthak technology worked. Their shields, weapons, and engines all operated on the same quantum frequency patterns. It was like they had built their entire civilization around one scientific principle. Katie, are you seeing this? Lisa called to her research partner. Katie Brooks looked up from her own workstation with excitement in her eyes. The quantum resonance signatures are all linked. If we could disrupt the base frequency, it might cascade through their entire network. Exactly. Their greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. One properly tuned signal could bring down their shields, disable their weapons, maybe even shut down their engines. But how do we generate that kind of signal? We'd need to understand quantum mechanics at a level that's decades beyond our current technology. Lisa smiled grimly. Then we better learn fast. Start working on the theoretical framework. I'll begin designing the hardware. An explosion rocked the station and threw both women to the floor. Through the laboratory windows, they could see Vorthak landing craft descending toward the lunar surface. The aliens were coming to take Luna Station by force. On Mars, Colonel Ryan Murphy crouched behind the wreckage of a supply depot and watched Vorthak soldiers march through the colony streets. The aliens moved in perfect formation like machines. Their weapons swept back and forth searching for human resistance fighters. Murphy had served in 3 different wars, but he had never fought an enemy like this. The Vorthak were 8 feet tall and heavily armored. Their reflexes were faster than human, and their strength was incredible. A single alien warrior could fight 5 human soldiers and win, but Murphy had noticed something important during the first week of ground fighting. The aliens followed their battle plans exactly without any creativity or adaptation. They attacked the same way every time. When humans used unexpected tactics, the Vorthak seemed confused and slow to respond. Sergeant Bailey, take your squad around to the left flank, Murphy whispered into his radio. When they reach the intersection, we'll hit them with everything we've got. Sergeant Chris Bailey led his men through the ruins of what used to be New Phoenix. The city had been beautiful once with parks and schools and shopping centers. Now it was a maze of broken concrete and twisted metal, perfect terrain for guerrilla warfare. The Vorthak squad walked into the ambush exactly as Murphy predicted. Human soldiers opened fire from 3 directions at once. Plasma rifles lit up the street with deadly energy. The aliens tried to respond, but they couldn't adapt quickly enough to the unexpected attack. 4 Vorthak warriors died before the rest could take cover. Murphy smiled as he watched the survivors retreat in confusion. It was the first time he had seen the aliens show anything that looked like fear. War leader Zexthor studied battle reports in his command chamber and felt something he had never experienced before. Doubt, the human resistance, was lasting much longer than any previous conquest. Most species surrendered within days once they realized their weapons were useless. These humans kept fighting even when defeat was certain. His aide approached nervously. War leader, the ground forces on Mars are requesting additional support. The humans are using tactics we have never encountered. What kind of tactics? Zexthor demanded. They refuse to fight our warriors directly. Instead, they attack supply lines and communication centers. They strike from hiding and disappear before we can respond. Our commanders are having difficulty adapting to this strategy. Zexthor's claws scraped against his armor as he considered this information. The Vorthak military doctrine was based on overwhelming force and direct confrontation. They had never faced an enemy that refused to meet them in open battle. Increase the bombardment of their population centers, he ordered. Fear will make them see reason. When enough of their kind die, they will surrender to save the rest. But Zexthor was wrong about human nature. Each new atrocity only made the survivors fight harder. Every destroyed city created more resistance fighters. Every dead civilian strengthened humanity's resolve to never give up. Back in the asteroid belt, Admiral Morrison received reports of the ground fighting on Mars and felt a spark of hope. The aliens could be hurt. They could be confused. They could be beaten if humanity was smart enough and brave enough to find the right strategy. He looked at the stars and made a promise to the people who had died defending Earth. This war was far from over. 6 months after the war began, Dr. Lisa Campbell finally cracked the code. She stood in her makeshift laboratory on Ceres Station, staring at the quantum resonance patterns displayed on her computer screen. The solution had been hiding in plain sight all along. "Katie, come look at this," Lisa called to her research partner who was working at another terminal nearby. Katie Brooks hurried over and studied the data. Her eyes widened as she understood what Lisa had discovered. "The frequency modulation is so simple. How did we miss it?" "Because we were thinking like humans," Lisa replied. The Vorthak built their entire technology around efficiency and uniformity. Every ship, every weapon, every piece of equipment operates on the exact same quantum signature. They never considered that this could be a weakness. Lisa's fingers flew over the keyboard as she ran simulation after simulation. Each test confirmed what she had suspected. A properly calibrated quantum disruption pulse could cascade through Vorthak systems like a virus, destroying everything it touched. "How long to build a prototype?" Katie asked. "Give me 3 days and I'll have something we can test. Give me 3 weeks and I'll have something that can win this war." Captain Alex Carter piloted his stealth ship Silent Arrow through the outer system toward a lone Vorthak cruiser. His vessel was one of only 5 ships equipped with Dr. Campbell's experimental quantum disruptor. If the weapon worked, it would change everything. If it failed, Alex and his crew would die for nothing. "Range to target?" Alex asked his weapons officer, Lieutenant Mary Foster. 2,000 kilometers in closing. The cruiser hasn't detected us yet. Their sensors can't penetrate our stealth field." Alex wiped sweat from his forehead despite the cool air recycling through his ship. Everything depended on the next few minutes. 6 months of research and development had led to this moment. Humanity's future hung in the balance. "Target acquired," reported Foster. "Quantum disruptor is charged and ready to fire. Fire when ready." The weapon discharged with a sound like breaking glass. A beam of twisted energy struck the Vorthak cruiser and seemed to be absorbed harmlessly into its shields. For a moment, nothing happened. Alex felt his heart sink as he prepared for the alien ship to return fire and destroy them. Then the cascade began. The cruiser's shields flickered and died. Its weapon system sparked and went dark. Emergency lights flashed across its hull as one system after another failed in sequence. Within 30 seconds, the massive alien warship was nothing more than a dead hulk drifting through space. "It worked," Foster whispered in amazement. The quantum disruptor actually worked. Alex activated his communication system and broadcast on all human frequencies. "This is Captain Carter of the Silent Arrow. The weapon test was successful." "Repeat, the weapon test was successful. We just killed a Vorthak cruiser with a single shot." Admiral Morrison received Alex's transmission aboard the Defiance and felt hope surge through his chest for the first time in months. The quantum disruptor gave humanity a fighting chance. Now they needed to use it wisely. "Begin Operation Comeback immediately," Morrison ordered. "All ships equipped with quantum disruptors are to target high-value Vorthak vessels. Priority targets are command ships and carriers. We only get one chance at this, so make every shot count." Lieutenant Maya Foster volunteered for the most dangerous mission of the war. Her team's job was to infiltrate the Vorthak command ship and plant a quantum device that could disable their entire fleet. It was essentially a suicide mission, but Maya didn't hesitate to accept it. "The plan is simple," she explained to her squad. "We use the captured Vorthak shuttle to get close to their flagship. Sergeant Bailey and I will board the ship while Nicole plants the quantum bomb. We'll have maybe 10 minutes before their security systems detect the intrusion." Sergeant Chris Bailey checked his weapons one final time. He had served with Maya for 2 years and trusted her completely. If anyone could pull off this impossible mission, she could. Nicole Green ran through the bomb's activation sequence in her mind. The device was no larger than a briefcase, but it contained enough quantum disruption energy to cripple every Vorthak ship within 100,000 kilometers. The only problem was getting close enough to use it. Their stolen shuttle approached the Vorthak flagship, using authentic alien identification codes. Maya held her breath as they passed through the enemy ship's defensive perimeter. One suspicious scan would reveal their true identity and get them all killed. "Docking Bay 12 is opening," reported Bailey from the pilot's seat. "Looks like they're buying our cover story." The shuttle landed inside the massive alien vessel without incident. Maya and her team moved quickly through corridors filled with Vorthak crew members. Their stolen armor and equipment made them look like another alien patrol. No one gave them a second glance. Nicole found the perfect location for the quantum bomb in the ship's main power core. The device would tap directly into the flagship's energy systems and use them to amplify the disruption pulse. When it detonated, every Vorthak ship in the fleet would suffer catastrophic system failures. "Bomb is in position," Nicole reported over their private communication channel. "Activation in 60 seconds, but something went wrong during their escape." A Vorthak security patrol spotted them in a restricted corridor and raised the alarm. Energy weapons lit up the narrow passage as aliens and humans exchanged fire. "Go without me," Nicole shouted as plasma bolts exploded around her position. "The mission is more important than any of us." Maya wanted to stay and fight, but she knew Nicole was right. The quantum bomb would detonate in 40 seconds whether they escaped or not. She grabbed Bailey and ran toward their shuttle as Nicole held off the pursuing aliens with her rifle. Nicole Green died firing her weapon at Vorthak warriors who would never understand the courage of her sacrifice. Her last act was to ensure that Maya and Bailey reached safety before the bomb detonated. The quantum device exploded deep inside the Vorthak flagship with a flash of light that could be seen across the solar system. The disruption pulse raced through every quantum connection in the alien fleet. Ships that had terrorized human space for months suddenly found themselves blind, defenseless, and helpless. Captain Steve Turner led the human counterattack in his fighter squadron. The same Vorthak destroyer that had killed most of his friends 6 months ago now drifted powerless before his guns. Its shields were down and its weapons were dead. "This is for Red Squadron," Steve said quietly as he fired every missile his fighter carried. The destroyer exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the asteroid belt. All around him, other human pilots were destroying crippled alien ships that could no longer defend themselves. The hunter had become the prey. War leader Zexthor stood on his bridge and watched his invincible fleet die ship by ship. He had conquered 43 civilizations without ever losing a single vessel. Now humans were destroying his forces with weapons that shouldn't exist. "How is this possible?" he roared at his subordinates. These creatures were helpless 6 months ago. Their technology was primitive compared to ours. His aide cowered before answering. "War leader, it appears the humans have developed some kind of quantum disruption technology. Our scientists believe they studied our ships and found a weakness in our defensive systems." Zexthor's claws carved deep scratches in his command chair. No conquered species had ever adapted this quickly. Most civilizations barely understood the science behind their own weapons. These humans had not only figured out Vorthak technology, but had found a way to turn it against them. For the first time in his military career, Zexthor faced the possibility of defeat. Operation Comeback spread across human space like wildfire. Within 3 weeks, every human ship had been equipped with quantum disruptor weapons. The technology that Dr. Lisa Campbell had developed in her laboratory was now being mass-produced in hidden factories throughout the outer colonies. Captain Danny Shaw commanded the newest human, battleship Retribution, as it hunted Vorthak forces. Through the Jupiter system, his ship carried 12 quantum disruptors and enough firepower to destroy an entire alien fleet. The tables had turned completely from the early days of the war. "Contact bearing 270, reported his sensor officer. 3 Vorthak destroyers attempting to reach the hyperspace jump point. Danny smiled coldly. The aliens were running now instead of attacking. Fear had replaced their arrogance. "Intercept course. Maximum speed. Don't let them escape to warn their home fleet." The Retribution closed the distance quickly. The Vorthak ships detected the human vessel and tried to flee, but their engines were no match for human pursuit. Danny's weapons officer targeted the lead destroyer and fired a single quantum disruptor blast. The alien ship's systems failed instantly. Its shields collapsed and its weapons went dark. The destroyer tumbled helplessly through space as its crew struggled to restore power. The other 2 Vorthak vessels suffered the same fate within minutes. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from all 3 ships," reported the communications officer. "Acknowledge their surrender and take them prisoner," Danny ordered. These aliens might have useful intelligence about their remaining forces. Dr. Campbell worked around the clock in her new research facility on Europa Station. The captured Vorthak databases contained information that shocked her to the core. Humanity was not just fighting one alien empire. They were fighting the remnants of a galactic civilization that had conquered dozens of species over 3 centuries. "Katie, look at these records," Lisa called to her research partner. "The Vorthak have destroyed entire civilizations. The Alteran Republic, the Christek Collective, the Harmony of Worlds, all of them extinct because they couldn't resist Vorthak technology." Katie studied the historical data with growing horror. How many billions of beings have they killed? The computer estimates over 2 trillion sentient lives lost to Vorthak conquest. And we're the first species to fight back successfully in over 300 years. Lisa felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. Humanity wasn't just fighting for their own survival anymore. They were fighting for every enslaved species in the galaxy, and for the memory of every civilization the Vorthak had destroyed. Lieutenant Maya, Foster led a rescue mission to the former Vorthak prison world of Kepler 442b. Intelligence reports indicated that thousands of alien prisoners were being held there as slave laborers. Many of them came from species that had been conquered decades ago. "Remember, we're not just liberating prisoners," Maya told her strike team as their ships approached the planet. "We're freeing potential allies who know everything about Vorthak operations." The prison world's defenses had been designed to keep prisoners in, not invaders out. Maya's forces easily overwhelmed the Vorthak guards and secured the facility. What they found inside horrified even veteran soldiers who had seen the worst of war. Thousands of alien beings lived in conditions worse than animals. The insectoid Creeth had been forced to work in toxic mines until their shells cracked and their organs failed. The crystalline Veltar were kept in chambers that slowly dissolved their silicon-based bodies. The mammalian Zephyrians were bred like livestock to produce offspring for Vorthak experiments. "How long have you been here?" Maya asked an elderly Creeth through her universal translator. 47 cycles since my world burned," the alien replied with clicking sounds that the translator converted to words. "I had given up hope that freedom still existed in this galaxy." "Freedom exists as long as someone is willing to fight for it," Maya said firmly. "And humanity is fighting for everyone the Vorthak have enslaved." The rescued aliens provided invaluable intelligence about Vorthak military operations. They knew the locations of supply bases, the routes of patrol fleets, and the weaknesses in alien defenses. More importantly, they knew which world still had enslaved populations waiting for liberation. Admiral Morrison planned the next phase of human expansion from his command center on Titan Station. The quantum disruptor technology had given humanity a decisive advantage, but the war was far from over. The Vorthak still controlled hundreds of star systems and had billions of troops. Scattered across their empire, our intelligence indicates major Vorthak forces are regrouping in the Centauri system, reported his chief of staff, Captain Williams. "They're planning a counterattack to retake Earth." "How many ships?" "At least 2,000 vessels, including their newest dreadnoughts." "The aliens are throwing everything they have left at us." Morrison studied the tactical displays showing Vorthak fleet movements. The aliens were making a desperate gamble. If they could recapture Earth and destroy humanity's industrial base, they might still win the war despite their recent losses. "Begin immediate preparations for the defense of Earth," Morrison ordered. "Every available ship is to return to the Sol system. We'll make our stand at home." War leader Zexthor stood in his private chambers aboard the super dreadnought Dominator and stared at reports that made no sense. Human forces were advancing on dozens of fronts simultaneously. Species that had been enslaved for generations were rebelling against their Vorthak masters. The empire that had seemed eternal just months ago was collapsing system by system. His aide entered nervously carrying the latest intelligence summary. "War leader, we've lost contact with 17 more worlds in the past week. Human forces are liberating our prison colonies and turning former slaves into allies. How many ships do we have left?" "Approximately 3,000 vessels remain operational. However, many of our commanders are requesting permission to withdraw to the core worlds rather than continue offensive operations." Zexthor's anger flared at the suggestion of retreat. "The Vorthak do not retreat. We advance or we die in battle. Any commander who abandons his post will be executed for cowardice." But privately, Zexthor knew the truth. The Vorthak military machine was designed for conquest, not defense. They had never faced an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their determination. These humans fought with a ferocity that defied logic. They refused to surrender even when death was certain. "Captain," Steve Turner led a squadron, of the newest human fighters toward a Vorthak supply depot in the asteroid belt near Vesta. His pilots were all veterans now, survivors of the early battles who had learned to fight the aliens on equal terms. "Remember the plan," Steve announced over the squadron frequency. "Hit the fuel storage tanks first, then the ammunition dumps. We want to cripple their supply line, not just destroy one facility." The attack went perfectly. Human fighters equipped with quantum disruptors made short work of the depot's defenses. Massive explosions lit up the asteroid field as stored fuel and weapons detonated in chain reactions. The Vorthak forces in the inner system would now be cut off from reinforcement and resupply. "This is Red Leader to all units," Steve reported. "Mission accomplished. The supply depot is completely destroyed. No human casualties." It was a small victory compared to the massive battles raging across the galaxy. But Steve knew that every success brought humanity closer to total victory. The aliens who had once seemed invincible were now the ones running scared. The final battle for the Vorthak home system began on a cold morning in human space. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the largest fleet in human history prepare for jump to hyperspace. 5,000 ships filled the void around Earth, each one equipped with quantum disruptor technology that could cripple alien vessels with a single shot. "All ships report ready for jump," announced Captain Williams from her station. "The fleet is awaiting your orders, Admiral." Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the positions of every human vessel. 2 years ago, humanity had been facing extinction at the hands of an alien empire. Now they were bringing that same empire to its knees. The transformation seemed impossible, but it was happening before his eyes. "Begin the jump to Vorthak Prime," Morrison ordered. "Today we end this war." The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace in perfect formation. Behind them, Earth watched and waited for news of the final battle. Across human space, billions of people held their breath and prayed for victory. Admiral Ben Rodriguez commanded the second human fleet as it liberated the outer Vorthak colonies. His ships moved from system to system, freeing enslaved alien populations and destroying military installations. Each world they captured brought more allies to the human cause and more intelligence about Vorthak weaknesses. "Sir, we're receiving surrender signals from the Vorthak garrison on Rigel 7, reported his communications officer. "They're requesting terms for a peaceful handover of the planet." Rodriguez had seen what the Vorthak did to conquered worlds. Cities burned to ash, populations enslaved or exterminated, children taken from their families and raised as soldiers. The aliens had shown no mercy to anyone who opposed them. "Inform the garrison that they will be treated according to human standards of warfare," Rodriguez replied. "Soldiers who surrender will become prisoners. Civilians will not be harmed. War criminals will face trial." It was more mercy than the Vorthak had ever shown their victims. Rodriguez knew that many of his officers wanted revenge for the atrocities committed during the invasion of human space. But humanity would not sink to the level of their enemies. Dr. Lisa Campbell worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the science vessel Discovery. The quantum disruptor technology had given humanity the tools to win the war, but Lisa was already thinking about what came next. The galaxy would need to be rebuilt after centuries of Vorthak oppression. "The genetic damage is worse than we thought," Katie Brooks reported from her workstation. "Some of these enslaved species have been bred for specific traits for so many generations that they can barely survive on their own." Lisa studied the medical data from liberated alien populations. The Vorthak had treated other species like laboratory animals. They had modified alien genetics to create better workers, stronger soldiers, and more compliant slaves. Undoing that damage would take decades of careful treatment. "We'll help them," Lisa said firmly. "Every species the Vorthak enslaved deserves a chance to return to what they were before the conquest. It's our responsibility now." War leader Zexthor received reports of humanity's final assault from his command bunker, deep beneath the surface of the Vorthak homeworld. His once mighty empire was crumbling faster than he could comprehend. World after world fell to human forces or rebelled against Vorthak rule. The slaves his people had controlled for centuries were rising up to claim their freedom. "How many ships do we have left?" Zexthor asked his aide. "Less than 500, war leader. Most of our fleet has been destroyed or captured. The remaining vessels are scattered across the outer systems with no way to regroup." Zexthor stared at the tactical display, showing human forces approaching his homeworld. 5,000 enemy ships carried enough firepower to reduce the planet to radioactive dust. The beings his people had dismissed as primitive had somehow become the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "Prepare the planetary defenses," he ordered. "We will make the humans pay dearly for their victory." But even as he spoke, Zexthor knew the battle was already lost. The quantum disruptor weapons would neutralize his defenses within minutes. The orbital stations would fall. The ground installations would be destroyed. His people would face the same choice they had given to 43 other civilizations: surrender or die. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vorthak system and immediately began their advance toward the homeworld. Captain Danny Shaw watched from the bridge of his battleship as alien defense platforms opened fire with everything they had. Plasma beams and missile swarms filled space with deadly energy. "All ships activate quantum disruptors," Admiral Morrison commanded over the fleet frequency. "Target priority is orbital defenses followed by military installations on the surface." The human weapons fired in perfect coordination. Hundreds of quantum pulses struck Vorthak positions simultaneously. Defense platforms went dark as their power systems failed. Orbital fortresses tumbled helplessly toward the planet below. In less than an hour, the defenses that had protected the Vorthak homeworld for 1,000 years were nothing but floating. Debris. Captain Steve Turner led his fighter squadron through the wreckage of the alien fleet toward the planet's surface. His mission was to locate and secure the Vorthak government complex before the leadership could escape or destroy important records. Red Squadron. "We have visual contact with the capital city," Steve announced. "Beginning assault on the government district." The city below was massive, with towers that reached into the clouds and streets wide enough for their largest vehicles. But it was also strangely quiet. No air defenses rose to meet the human fighters. No military units moved through the streets. It was as if the entire population was hiding and waiting for the end. Deep in the government bunker, a new voice spoke up during the emergency council meeting. Ysandra was a civilian leader who had opposed the war from the beginning. She had watched her people's empire collapse and knew that continued resistance would only lead to their extinction. "We must surrender," she declared to the shocked silence of the military commanders. "The humans have proven they can destroy us completely. Our only hope for survival is to accept their terms and pray they show us the mercy we never showed others." Zexthor's claws scraped against the metal table. "The Vorthak do not surrender. We fight until death takes us all. Then death will take us all," Ysandra replied calmly. "Our children will die for your pride. Our entire species will become extinct because you cannot admit defeat. I will not let that happen." Before Zexthor could stop her, Ysandra activated the planetary communication system and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Ysandra of the Vorthak Civilian Council. We surrender unconditionally to human forces. We ask for mercy and offer to cooperate fully with your occupation." The transmission reached every human ship in the system within seconds. Admiral Morrison listened to the alien surrender and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that the killing could finally stop. Sadness for all the beings who had died during 2 years of brutal warfare. "All ships cease fire immediately," Morrison ordered. "The war is over." President Amanda Hayes received news of the victory in her office in Washington. She thought about the choice she had made 2 years ago, when the Vorthak first demanded humanity's surrender. The easy path would have been submission. The right path had led to this moment when her species stood triumphant over their former oppressors. "Madam President, Admiral Morrison is requesting instructions for the occupation of Vorthak space," reported her secretary. Amanda considered her response carefully. Humanity could rule the galaxy through fear like the Vorthak had done. They could enslave the aliens who had tried to enslave them. They could become the very monsters they had fought against. "Tell the Admiral that we will establish war crimes tribunals to judge those responsible for atrocities," Amanda said. "But we will also begin rehabilitation programs for Vorthak civilians and freedom programs for all enslaved species. We won this war by being better than our enemies. We'll win the peace the same way." The age of Vorthak domination was over. The age of human leadership had begun.